appreciate what you were saying. I think that we know that we're going to be better off as PSD if everyone perceives that this is an open process. And that was one of the things about the facility planning study. To be open, to look at all the alternatives, that was really their charge. I'm going to ask right back in the back.
Hi, I hear a lot of talk about the use of the school and the feasibility committee deciding based on utilization. What I haven't heard is how much, if they're even considering how much it's going to cost to transport 372 students from Lopez to an alternative school, to change this school into a specialty high school, renovating, costs like that. So when is that going to be addressed if it has not been already? And is that going to be considered when we look potentially saving $2 million versus the expense of transportation and renovation and things like that?
I think I can clearly answer your question about the transportation, but the issues surrounding the dollars, they're pretty exaggerated as to what we would save. I think because that was a big sum number that involved the closure of lots of schools to get to that sum, right? But transportation is going to be a consideration in the feasibility study. And that's when those considerations will be taken into account. So let's just play out the scenario a little bit from the standpoint of thinking about a site, a elementary school, where would the children need to go in terms of being bused. That would be the feasibility study. And $2 million, you have to close a lot of schools to achieve.
Can I very quickly ask a follow-up question?
So, Dr. Wilson, you've indicated a couple of times now that the full story has not been printed in the press, and that there have been options that have been considered that are not in the press, and that the numbers that are in the press have been exaggerated. When will you be publishing to the press an accurate depiction of what will be occurring in the school district?
The press was given a full disclosure of everything I've talked about today.
Can we get a
That's all I can say about that. So everything that I've talked to you about today, the press was well aware of. There was another part of your question, though, about the large sum, and I think that's the part that we're going to be challenged by as we look at fiscal challenges. But it's important to think about all of these things are summed into one number. And I may not be getting the context of the full complexion of your business. I don't want to create confusion.
I'm fairly confused because we stated at the beginning that all four options call for closure or repurposing of Lopez. You've said that that was not an accurate depiction. And so I guess what my question is, that was the recommendation then of this facility study that will be passed into the feasibility study to determine what the right course of action is. We would like to understand what are the options that will be fed into that feasibility committee that do not include repurposing or closing Lopez Elementary.
The feasibility, you're giving me good questions. I'm not always getting the full complexion. What I mean to say is the feasibility committee is the next iteration, and the options that are with the feasibility committee represent the options the district is looking at.
So which of those do not call for the closure or the repurposing of Lopez Elementary? Because as we read it, all of them call for the closure or repurposing of Lopez Elementary.
Right. And what's difficult for me to try to respond to in a positive manner, as I think I have, I said the only option that's on the table presently, because I can't speak for the entire future of this district at this time, but what we're looking at is the long-term option of a small high school.
Located either at Riffenburg or Lopez.
That the committee will be studying.
Yes. When will that be printed in the newspaper that those are the two?
Or on the website.
Or on the website, then those are the only two options being considered.
There's a document that's been distributed that is our working document, as well as there's a document, what is it called, Ellen? It's our facility utilization process document that's on our website.
So then where does the newspaper story of 5 options come from if they were operating under full disclosure?
Ask the newspapers. He can't answer that.
I can't answer that question for you. I can tell you, though, that the information that the district provided the Board of Education is the same information that I'm providing you here. There's total consistency within that statement. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I worry that this kind of announcement might deter future students from wanting to come to Lopez with this hanging over our head. Can you comment on that?
I worry about the same thing. I think, though, the element around the uncertainty that's been created, the district will continue to reduce that uncertainty. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to be with you tonight prior to the listening session, because I knew this might take a little bit of time, and it was better for me to be with you than trying to do this at Trout when Riffenberg has similar questions. I'm going to Riffenberg next. And so we will continue through our communications to be as clear as possible. And I think other schools have similar concerns. But yes, we know with school of choice that that does influence people's opinions and beliefs, and we'll continue to try to correct what's been incorrect.
Over here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to look this direction now. Go this way.
It hit me that we were told that the enrollment's dropping, so that's the reason why that this is being considered. Well, we had 468 last year. We got 372 this year. And actually, all of them transferred out, 70 to 72 to the 6th grade moved. So if you put those together with about 20 kindergartners that weren't started here, I don't see any drop in enrollment. Plus the fact, this isn't a high school. They could do a high school basketball game in here if you had to.
You're right. We wouldn't try. The kind of program that we would operate in a small or in an elementary school would not have extracurricular opportunities attached to it. You could have a gym class, though, in here. And let me address the enrollment issue. A lot of our schools are steadily dropping in enrollment, and those patterns are trends that a demographer provides us information about, looking at population studies, and it was that kind of information based on a long-range projection, not just isolated on a particular year. And I think that's where it will be somewhat uncertain, and unless you look at those studies and see that data, it's not as clear.
But when you look at this, you change this into a high school, where are you going to park 100 to 150 cars?
And your point's outstanding, and as I mentioned earlier, that's what the feasibility